is to cover up because you're afraid of what the witness will say. The question before the Senate is, do the Republican senators want to be complicit in the cover-up of the president? Any senator who votes to deny a witness, who votes to deny evidence, is voting to cover up the president's crimes and subversion of the Constitution. There's no other way about it. There is no conceivable reason to deny witnesses, to say you cannot bring in the evidence. The House of Representatives cannot bring in the evidence. There's no reason. I mean, it's obvious to say, what do they fear? Why won't they bring in the witnesses? Because they are afraid of what the witnesses will say. But there's no trial in this country in which you wouldn't admit the relevant witnesses, in which it's even a question.
Let's go to questions.
Do you need the full 24 hours to make your case, and are you going to use the full 24 hours even to go through tonight?
You know, that will be a decision that the House should make, not that the senators should prescribe to go late into the evening. Look, there is a wealth of evidence to present here, and we should have the opportunity to present the case as the House chooses to present its case, not to go late into the evening when Senator McConnell evidently hopes the public may not be watching. And so we'll make decisions about how long our case should go within the rules that are prescribed. But I think the question is, what is the senator's interest? What is Senator McConnell's interest in structuring the trial this way? Is this about hiding the evidence from the American people with late-night sessions? Is this about just trying to get it over with? Because that should not be the motivation here. Senator McConnell has taken the same oath as every other senator in that chamber, and that is to do impartial justice, not to try to skew the process in such a way where the House is not permitted to put its evidence before the American people.
Do you worry that all this focus on rules and process and what Senator McConnell is doing dilutes in any way the message you're trying to put out about what you think President Trump did?
No, because look, this is part and parcel of an effort to cover up the president's misconduct. That was the whole object that is charged in Article 2 of the impeachment articles. And if the Senate and the Senate leadership will not allow the House to present its case, will not allow the calling of witnesses or presentation of documents, if Senator McConnell makes this the first impeachment trial in history without witnesses or documents, it will not prove the president innocent. It will merely prove the Senate guilty of working with the president to obstruct the truth from coming out. And so I do think that by structuring the trial this way, it furthers our case that what's going on here really is a cover-up of evidence to the American people.
Who would you like to hear from the most?
Well, and I'll ask some of my colleagues to add on as well. But look, there are a number of key witnesses I think that we know even at the outside of the trial should be called. And there are people like John Bolton and people like Mick Mulvaney. There are people like Michael Duffy and Mr. Blair and others. But if we're proceeding in a logical fashion, if we're truly interested in a fair trial, the first step ought to be the production of the documents. Those documents will reveal precisely who the most important witnesses are. And they may be those four, and there may be others as well. Let me just give one illustration of what's being hidden from the American people. We have text messages where high-level people in the diplomatic corps are asking each other, are we really withholding military aid? And as we talked about last night, I think it's crazy to withhold military aid to pressure an ally to get help with a political campaign. Okay, those documents have not been provided by the administration. They don't want the American people to see them. Now, we have seen them because cooperating witnesses did provide them. But documents like those are being withheld from the public. That is the kind of cover-up that the president is engaged in, and the Senate should not make itself a party to that. So, just to conclude in terms of witnesses, we should review the documents. The House should have the right to call witnesses. The president should have the right to call witnesses. Material witnesses, not witnesses just for the purpose of smearing his opponent, but material witnesses. That's what makes a fair trial. But let me ask my colleagues who hadn't had a chance to speak if they'd like to add. Okay. Last question.
How much does it hamstring you to not be able to have to know which witnesses and documents are going to be admitted while you're making your case?
Well, you know, it's as if you're on jury duty, and the judge were to come in the courtroom and say, you know, I've been talking to the defendant, and we've decided I'm not going to let the prosecution call any witnesses, and I'm not going to let them call for any documents. I'm only going to let the prosecution read from the cold record in the grand jury. And even then, we won't necessarily decide. You can consider that as evidence. That makes it impossible to have a fair trial. Not just difficult, but impossible to have a fair trial. And I think for senators who take their oath seriously, and I hope and pray that they do, this is not the fair trial that the American people want. It's not the fair trial the American people deserve. Thank you.